She is the only coach in NCAA history and one of the 3 college coaches overall with at least 1,000 victories. In 2009, the Sporting News placed her number 11 on its list of the 50 greatest coaches of all times in all sports. She was the only woman on the list. I'm speaking of the former women's basketball head coach of the Tennessee Lady Vols, Pat Summitt. She has been amazingly successful, but her life took a shocking turn in 2011 when she was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's disease. And as we all know, it's an irreversible brain condition that affects about 5 million Americans. Despite her devastating diagnosis, she led the Lady Vols to win their 16th SEC championship just a year ago in March of 2012. She writes about her life and the challenge of her early onset dementia in a delightful and charming book entitled Sum It Up. She writes with her trademark honesty and grace, and she reveals her fears, her early anger and astonishment, her diminishing abilities, her decision to retire, and how her faith sustains her. It's her faith that sustains her. As we come together on this Pentecost of 2013, we as believers realize that often it's only our faith that gets us through. Pat Summitt tells us that from early on in her life, she's had a very close relationship with the Lord. Certainly, this diagnosis has wounded her terribly, but she has something in her life that does not allow this wound to keep her from going on. As we celebrate Pentecost, I believe this helps us understand something about what happened to the apostles. They were also extremely wounded by the crucifixion of Jesus. Their expectation that he would be there to be a world leader would not leave them so quickly, so early. He was their future hope. And at first, they hid from the world. But after the coming of the Spirit, they were changed people. They left their hiding places and they set out courageously to preach the gospel. The apostles hid until the Spirit penetrated their lives. Pat Summitt tells us that she experienced the Spirit early in her life, and that's what enabled her to be a fighter all her life and to be a fighter today and face this new challenge the way she's faced every challenge in her life, with hard work, perseverance, a sense of humor, and a very deep faith. It certainly would be easy for any of us to go into hiding as the difficulties of life challenge us. Whether it's the loss of a job, issues with children, divorce, chronic illness, relationship failures, caring for spouses with terminal illness, the temptation to escape life and give up confronts us at different times in our lives. But I think all of us can look around, and there are so many examples of people who are grounded in the Spirit of God, who have a depth to their lives that helps them put perspective on any and all the challenges, to never give up and to never go into hiding. In an interview after she announced her retirement, Pat said, "Sometimes I wish God hadn't given me so many issues." And the interviewer questioned her on that and said, "Well, what kind of issues?" And she said, "Well, personal. Can you tell me about them?" The interviewer said, and she didn't want to tell him, but she said, "I guess they made me who I am. I guess they made me better. I've learned one great thing in life. And the interviewer asked her, "What?" And she responded, "I learned how powerful God is in my life." It seems to me that Pat Summitt realizes her place in the universe. She realizes that the world does not revolve around her. She realizes that life does not owe her perfect health. She is not entitled. She is filled with the Spirit of God. There was an interesting article a few weeks ago in the Washington Post entitled "The Collapse of Entitlement." The writer wrote this. He said, "We expected all social problems to be solved. We expected business cycles, economic insecurity, poverty, and racism to end. We expected almost limitless personal freedom and self-fulfillment. Sadly, millions of Americans who have played by the rules, work hard and you will achieve the American dream, are now in distress." And the author goes on to note some very impressive statistics about the collapse of entitlement, and then he dismantles some of the unrealistic expectations that we've built around our lives, like big corporations will always take care of you, or that the government could fix our economy, or that lifestyle choices about marriage or cohabitation and divorce would expand individual freedom without inflicting adverse social consequences. And to all of those, he says, wrong. We have been wrong. He said, family breakdown has deepened poverty and worsened children's prospects. I believe the article missed a couple of things, though. I think the article missed challenging our expectations about life not being stressful, or our expectations about not aging, or our expectations about not being challenged by chronic illness at some point, or our expectations of modern medicine and our longevity. These are as out of whack as all of the other entitlements that we believe we are owed. I'm sure that at the age of 59, Pat Summitt believed that she still had many years of great health ahead of her and many more teams to coach. But she had to let all that go. She had to trust in God, in God's wisdom, God's provision, rather than just trusting in herself. She had to lower considerably her expectations and face life as life presented itself to her. And she didn't go into hiding either. After she was diagnosed, she called a press conference and announced to her fans her need to retire and how she was going to face the challenges ahead of her. And she told them that she would face the challenges with the strength of the Spirit of God. So perhaps this Pentecost of 2013, each one of us can reflect upon our unrealistic expectations and our own sense of entitlement. Life just doesn't always happen the way we would like it to happen. Each day brings new challenges, and oftentimes our world is turned upside down. But Pentecost reminds us and challenges us that we have been given a promise. And the promise is that the Spirit of God will never leave us and will, if we are open to it, not take away the challenges, but give us the strength to live with the challenges and not hide from them or from life. The message of Pentecost is that the Spirit enables us to face all the challenges of life, as Pat Summitt is doing, with hard work, with perseverance, a sense of humor, and a deep faith.